All right, MEA members, if you could find your seat, we are so excited about this amazing event. So if you could go ahead and find your seat. Thank you so much. So before we begin, can we please give a round of applause, please, to our help staff, wait staff at the Marriott who are unionized. Thank you so much. Thank you. My name is Chandra Matafari. I am the MEA president, a teacher, and a proud member of the Novi EA. We are so excited to have you here today and our guests. We have not had an event like this in 24 years. I know, 24 years. So let's fire up for that, right? I would like to take a minute to thank all of our volunteers and the MEA staff and the conference committee who helped make this amazing event so special. Please give a round of applause to our MEA staff and our conference staff and committee. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who came here, our members, our educators. And yes, once again, there are snow days. I think we almost should probably rename it the Snow Day Conference. But I am so glad that you're here, and hopefully you have met some new friends, learned some new things, and are inspired to go back and help do great work for our students. I'm grateful for the candidates who came here to take their time to spend a morning with us to talk about their priorities in education. We also have some guests with us, actually many special guests, but among them we have our new state superintendent, Dr. Glenn Maleko. So let's give him a round of applause for being here. And we also have AFT President Terrence Martin. Let's give him a round of applause. I'd also like to thank the members of the press for coming here today and welcome everyone who is watching this event online. So before we begin class, we have a little bit of ground rules to cover. We're going to be respectful, and we're going to be excited learners and listeners. And you're going to probably hear a lot of things that you like and some things you might go home and reflect on later. So we'll treat our guests with respect no matter what your feelings are. On your tables are a packet of the candidates' bios and QR codes, and we ask that you take the survey after and share your thoughts. We're going to keep this moving so there'll be more time for questions submitted by our members. We had more than 150 come in, even though many of them had common themes. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our moderator today for our forum, Zoe Clark. Zoe is Michigan Public's Political Director and Associate General Manager. As Political Director, Clark guides coverage of the state capitol elections and policy debates. Her passion for understanding and explaining politics led Michigan Public to create the position for the first time in the station's history. Clark is also the host of It's Just Politics, a weekly look at Michigan politics. She regularly appears on WKAR Off the Record and WDIV's Flashpoint and offers political analysis on a variety of other outlets. She holds degrees in communication studies and political science from the University of Michigan and lives in Ann Arbor, where she was born and raised. Please join me in welcoming our moderator today, Zoe Clark.
Thank you, Chandra. Okay, well, I'm not the reason you're here, so we're just going to bring folks out and move this show on. We've got Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, former Attorney General Mike Cox, and former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Please welcome all four to the stage. Everyone, have a seat. Have a seat. So we are going to jump into the rules very quickly before we jump into questions. Before the candidates were introduced, just now there was a random drawing to answer the first question. The candidates were introduced and seated in that order. That means each candidate will have the opportunity to answer a question first, second, third, and fourth, and hopefully numerous times because we're going to get through a lot of questions in this hour. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. Candidates, if you need me to re-ask by the time it gets to the fourth person, feel free. I'm happy to do that. We have a 2-minute countdown clock in front of us. My job is to politely remind you of your time. It will become impolite if I have to remind you more than once. For the audience, your job is to please keep your applause and other noises to yourselves. I know that is difficult in a room like this with candidates like this, but it means we will be able to get through more of your meaningful and interesting questions that way. And finally, speaking of questions, these questions were asked by members yourselves, submitted by you, but they were chosen by me and only me. No one else has seen these questions or knows what order they are in. I should note, though, I have edited some of them, though, for clarity and brevity, though educators, of course, don't need that. That was for my own eyes. So with that, let's get started. And Sheriff, the first question goes to you. It is from Erin Parker, a teacher from Stevenson, who says, education is the foundation of our nation. Education extends beyond partisan lines and is essential for ensuring a strong democracy. She's wondering how you will prioritize education, students, and educators. In short, she wants to know, how is education going to be more than just a campaign bargaining chip this year?
She's right. And if you listen to Martin Luther King, it's a pathway to freedom. Frederick Douglass, those that have been inspired and those that have inspired us, it is the backbone of everything. And if you look at the first disciplined area that you and I started, it was because of education and teaching. So when you look at this country, it has been used as a political battle, back and forth. Who supports education? Who doesn't fund it like they should? This is the baseline of economy, baseline of healthcare, baseline of families, education. And the people in this room, you represent that. We're not immune to think that people here that have not only started your career, there's retirees here, there's parapros, there's transportation facilities and management, there's custodians in this room. You are what makes education an absolute must. If anybody is going to prioritize, education is number one. And you're talking to somebody who's from law enforcement. Because when that breaks down, you have people that don't pour into the economy. You have people that make bad decisions that make our communities unsafe. You have people that get into addictions. You have people that have a breakdown of their family. It is the baseline. So any executive leader who has the ability to reframe, not just for the next 2 years or the next 4 years, but a generational pattern of stability, both the school budget and the pathway, giving equity throughout the whole state. That's just human. That's not partisan. That makes sense. The biggest seed planters of my life, Mrs. Olivet, 2nd grade, Mrs. White, my bus driver, in 6th grade, told me my report card was better than what my dad thought. Dr. Burns, Mott College, and Ellis Perlman. These are all seed planters that have carved the path that I'm on today. Education is the baseline, not partisan.
Secretary Benson.
Well, thank you, Zoe. I want to start actually by thanking all of you for being here today and also for the work that you do. My parents were special education teachers in public schools. They're NEA members. And the entire reason I got involved in public service was to fight for them, because I was 6 years old at the back of their classroom watching how they showed up every single day to provide an education for every kid in their school, including those who could so easily be left behind. That shaped who I am as a human being, and it's why I became a teacher as well. And you know, when you asked that question, Zoe, I was thinking about, I taught education laws, one of the things I taught, and one of my students once asked me when we went through all the defunding of education that was happening in Michigan and other things we needed to do to care for all of you who choose a profession where you're showing up every day, not just to serve, but to invest in our future in a way that no other profession can. None. Our job as public servants, as leaders in this state, is to have your backs and stand with you every step of the way. And you know I'm going to do that. You know I'm going to prioritize that, not just because I see my parents, in every one of you, and will fight for you just like I fought for my parents, but because I'm also a mom of a 9-year-old little boy. And as I also look at the kids throughout our state, their future will be defined by what you all and all of us together are able to do. Their ability to be prepared for the jobs of tomorrow are going to be determined by what we all do together over the next 5 years. So my commitment, a significant reason why I am running for this office, is because I know and have lived and have seen firsthand your struggles and the need to have a governor who has walked in your shoes and is on your side, and that's who I am. That's who I've been my entire life. And that's why my education plan, among other things, which I know we'll talk about today, is all about investing in you and supporting you and ensuring that you have the tools you need to do the jobs that you signed up to do.
Attorney General Mike Cox.
Thank you. It's okay if I stand up, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. And you're probably wondering, how did this Republican wander in here? So let me start off with this. I know I'm not going to be endorsed by the MEA. So let's just get that out of the way, okay? So that's cool. But you represent so many other teachers, families, communities, and I want to talk about education. That's why I'm here, because it is the Michigan Education Association after all. So as a kindergartner, the son of a maid and a carpenter, as a kindergartner, as the son of a maid and a carpenter, I went to Vandenberg School in Redford Township. And it launched me on my way to success. And those teachers were awesome. The flip side, I now have grandchildren in Mississippi, 2 of them who've grown up in Mississippi. They've experienced the Mississippi Miracle. So while others in Michigan will talk about the Mississippi Miracle, I've lived it. I've lived it. I've seen that they got my granddaughter Savannah to be able to learn as a special ed autistic child, learn to be able to read before the 4th grade. They had early interventions, and they surrounded her with services. And they did it with less money than what we do here in Michigan. And they went from 49th to 9th in 4th grade reading, while we've sunk from 31st to 48th. Media will tell you we're tied for 44th, but there's only 2 states behind us. What I'm talking about is a failure of leadership. I'm not talking about the foot soldiers like you all. I'm talking about the governor, the superintendent, and the local school boards who are not leading. And as your governor, I will work with you. You always have a place at the table. But I will let you know that parents and families and children will be at the head of that table. But you will always be there, and I hope to work with you as we change Michigan's education system. Thank you very much.
Mayor Duggan.
I can't be upstaged by the Attorney General. But thank you to the MEA for the invitation, and thank you for being in Detroit. How are you enjoying it so far? Who hasn't been here in more than 5 years? Anybody? Most of you have been here. You've seen how it has changed. If you had been in this room 13 years ago, you were in a city that was in bankruptcy, that had 47,000 abandoned houses, that had the parks closed, that had police and fire that didn't show up. And I was running the hospital system here at the Detroit Medical Center. And the employees would come to me in the cafeteria and say, "You got to run for mayor." And I said, "Run for mayor? There is no place that has had deeper racial division than the city of Detroit and the suburbs." And they said, "But if people got to know you the way we did, you would be elected." And I went out, living room to living room, house to house, 250 house parties, and I sat with people and heard about their problems. And the thing that I started with, the solution isn't to fix the lights. The solution isn't to start with the parks. We have to heal our divisions until we get away from black versus white and city versus suburbs. And you've seen 12 years of growth with what unity does. And then I look at what's happened in the state and the schools. I have never seen Lansing more toxic than it is today. And I look at our educators, and I started out, I announced education was my priority. I was up at the Mackinac Policy Conference. I talked for an entire hour. I was in Macomb County 2-hour session on March 3rd, Grand Rapids, totally on education, because here's what I know. $1.3 billion of the school aid fund that was supposed to go to K-12 has been diverted by the parties over the years. The money should be in the hands of our schools. And I'm somebody who's going to do what I'm going to say. It's not Republican or Democrat. We're going to put the money back into the K-12 system.
Okay, let's go to question 2. This is from Erica Darling. She is a teacher from East Lansing. She says, Michigan ranks 44th in the country for average teacher starting pay. She'd like to know what your plan is to increase that number and then retain in bold quality educators in our state. Secretary Benson, this first question for you.
Well, yeah, and thanks. I can see of nothing that is more important than addressing the educator shortage in our state. And in my view, we do that 2 ways. Number one, of course, we need to ensure that compensation and that you all are getting paid for the professionals that you are and the work that you do. And that's why, to me, I have said, and will be a part of our education plan, that every starting teacher should have a starting salary of at least $60,000 or more, period. And additional increases for those with additional experience and for support staff. We need to ensure our starting salaries are greater because that is also, to the second point, a sign of respect. I know that you all show up every day, early mornings, late nights, working on reports, meeting with parents, trying to do so much with so little. And the very least we could do is show you all the professional respect that you have earned and deserve. And so as governor, I will make sure that you have a seat at every table. Every decision that is being made about you and your work, you will have a voice in, you will be a part of. And I will reflect my commitment to that by ensuring that your compensation reflects the respect, the professional respect that you all have earned. To me, that is a critical component of attracting and retaining talented people. But that's not all. We want to invest in wraparound services so that you have continued investment in professional growth and training and all the resources you need to grow in your profession and serve the kids in your community and the entire community that you're a part of. Because I know that's what you signed up to do, and it's our job to make sure you're compensated fairly as a result.
General.
As governor, it will be my goal to ensure that every teacher here gets the salary and compensation they deserve, and that we create a situation where teachers want to flock to Michigan. But let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. Our state aid fund has gone up 70% over the past decade, while enrollment has dropped by 10%. So money isn't always the answer. I learned as a young Marine, and we were told as young Marines, we're not going to give you more money, you have to do better. But this is one thing I do know. The school aid fund this year provides for at least $15,000 per pupil. Most of you have at least 25 in your classroom. My math is right, that's about $325,000. A 20-year MEA teacher probably makes close to 90. You throw in benefits, it's $150,000. Where is all the other money going? But my point is this, if you want to laugh at me, we can talk about that. But the reality is in the class of 25, there is $325,000. And if you're not getting enough of that, then we need to look at administration. We need to look at leadership costs. Because as a Marine, as a homicide prosecutor in Wayne County, I learned how to do more with less and deliver for my troops. That's what leaders do. They don't hide the truth. They tell you the truth. And I have to tell you, when we're 48th in fourth grade reading, it's hard to tell the people of Michigan that you need more money. That's the reality. You may not want to hear it, but that is the truth. Accountability brings results. Results bring more money for teachers. It's that simple. And as your governor, I will work to bring more accountability. I will shrink the administrations, and I will put it on the superintendents of each one of your districts to deliver more to their students, the families, and to the teachers. Thank you.
Mayor Duggan.
If we're going to talk about the truth, let's talk about Proposal A in 1994, when the people of this state raised the sales tax from 4 cents to 6 cents and were promised that all of that money was going to go to K-12 education. And then in 2009, Jennifer Granholm in the Great Recession said, I got to borrow $200 million from it. I'll pay it back. And then Rick Snyder came in and put in a bunch of corporate tax cuts. And he said, I'm going to take the money, but I'm not going to pay it back. And started to take $400, and he was over $600 million out of the fund by the time he got there. And the Democrats said, they're shifting the money, this isn't right, it's a shell game. And when the Democrats came in, they were going to put that $600 million back, right? By the time of the Democratic trifecta, they took $1 billion out of the K-12 schools and moved it into a whole range of things, including all those earmarks that you've been reading about. And then this last year, the Republicans and Democrats, this is why I'm running as an independent, right? They couldn't get the budget passed. The law says they have to pass it by July 1st. Of course, they don't do it. Schools open September 1st. They don't have a budget. You had 1 out of 6 schools in this state did not fill teacher positions because they didn't have a budget. 1 out of 3 didn't fill para-pro positions because they didn't have a budget. But you know why the parties didn't want a budget? They were making money. The Democrats were sending out solicitations. The Republicans are trying to cancel the hot lunches. The Republicans were sending out their solicitations. The Democrats are trying to take money out of the schools. For 3 months, they raised money off the Republican-Democratic conflict. They came back in October, passed the budget, patted themselves on the back, and it wasn't $1 billion. This year, they took $1.3 billion, a record out of K-12. I will restore that money over 5 years by reducing 2% a year in the general fund. I will put every dollar back in and leave it there permanently.
Sheriff.
You're the talent. And it's not up to just one person. There's parapros in here making $14 an hour. That ain't right. That's not right.
Audience, I'm going to remind you, I'm sorry, Sheriff. I'm going to remind you of the applause. Thank you.
And I say that because what just happened was the raw emotion of what you see every day. So I'm not giving you political promises, a commitment. Is that if we don't raise the level of professionalism, that is investing in the most critical minds that are going to last for generations, then we are failing society. We're failing you. And in this room, as I said, you have all ranges of professionals in education. Nobody in here is doing it for the fame and fortune. You're doing it because you love what you do. And an executive leader has to prioritize that and to champion that. Like Jocelyn, I'm an educator, member of 6244 AFT. I've been an educator at the University of Michigan Flint for 28 years in public health. If I want to raise the level of quality of my class in public health, then I need the tools and the ability to do that. That's what you need. And that equitable opportunity, whether you're from the UP, Monroe, from the east or the west. So the reason we're in the bottom is for a lot of what was already been said, is the school aid fund has been used as a slush fund. The lottery money has been misinterpreted, and it's not used the way it was sold. The fact that as a state, if we don't put you, who are on the front lines, to the 1.4, 1.5 million public students from K through 12, then you know what happens? I see them as the sheriff. Because the people I see that are incarcerated have fallen through the cracks. And if we can equip them by equipping you with the highest level bonuses, retention, bonuses and education tied to areas that need qualified teachers, superior teaching, we need to bring you back to the front line as a profession and pay you as such. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, I'm going to take this moment just for some housekeeping. Again, we can get through more questions with less applause, and this is my polite reminder to the candidates. We're seeing a little mission creep on the time. We're keeping the questions to 2 minutes so we can get as much possible. Okay, let's talk about funding then. Jessica Fedorowicz, a teacher from South Haven. What is your plan then to create a steady, stable funding stream for Michigan schools that also addresses inequalities? Attorney General Cox.
Thank you. Mike brought up the theft from the school aid fund, and I agree with him. $1.2 billion has been stolen for community colleges and public universities. Quite frankly, I less object to the money going to the community colleges because oftentimes they work with you on CTE and dual enrollment, but they shouldn't charge local districts for dual enrollment if they're getting money out of the school aid fund. So I think that's a good point to bring up, Mike. But at the same time, let's be real. He's talking about 5% out of $21.3 billion. Here's the reality, and you may not want to hear it. If spending were the only thing that determined educational outcomes, Michigan would be at the top of the world. That's the reality. Indiana is spending less. They have fourth grade reading, 6th in the country. Mississippi is spending less. They have fourth grade reading, 9th in the country. And you know what? Teachers there get more respect, and salaries are going up there. Accountability matters. I'm not about pretending I'm going to throw more money at the $21.3 billion right off the bat. But if we start to lead and manage and not dwell on the 5%, and we start to get results for the parents and the families of Michigan, then parents, families will rally around and make teachers the pedestal, which they should be. Restoring respect to a public servant is important in my mind. I'm a career public servant, by and large. I spent 13 years in a union as a laborer and then as a prosecutor. I understand feeling the pressure and the pressure it puts on your family. But don't buy into the same old thing, repeating the same old thing, or getting distracted by the penny out of the dollar that's spent on public education. We can do better.
So again, by the end of this, you're going to realize why I'm running as an independent. But this is the Republican and Democrats' talking point. We put the money into community colleges and universities. They need the $1.3 billion. It's utter nonsense. Ask your friends in colleges and universities, where's the new $1.3 billion? They didn't get it. They took $1.3 billion out of the colleges and universities, and they spread it out into everything else, including all these earmarks that you keep reading about, that each legislator got to pick their own thing. And so here is the thing. I came into a medical center that had 15 days cash on hand and had planned to close 2 hospitals. When I left, we grew from 11,000 to 14,000 employees. I prioritized the emergency room and the care, and we built that. I came into a city running an $18 billion deficit, and I left with 12 straight balanced budgets. We got the crime rate way down, we got the houses down, and I left a $500 million surplus. When I say to you, I can manage the state budget to freeze 2% out of the rest of the general fund to restore our promise that the money goes to K-12, you don't have to listen to the promise. I've done it every place I've been. And I'm not saying to you, just give the money without any plan. We need to talk about the plans because the Republicans and Democrats have switched your curriculums every couple of years. They've switched your measurements every couple of years. I talk to principals and superintendents all the time that says they keep changing the standards on us. We are going to put that money into smaller class sizes. We are going to put it into parapros, helping particularly in the early reading years. We are going to put libraries. We've got public schools that don't have libraries. Can you imagine that? That's where we are in this state. And I want to both put the money in and give you the kind of leadership that you can produce results with it.
Sheriff?
Nobody gets their community college or university but by you. Protect the K-12 budget, lock it in there. Don't keep moving line items to pay for things that doesn't make K-12 the priority. Number 2, a 2-year budget. It makes no sense to keep doing this over and over where there's instability. You saw what happened last year where July 1st hit, it wasn't signed federally to July 4th, and nothing kicked off until the fall. That is unfair for you, trying to figure out how you're going to build your curriculum and have the resources to do what you need to do. Number 3, healthcare. If you don't take care of the talent, it doesn't matter what the infrastructure is. It doesn't matter what the books are. If you can't take care of the people behind the machine, and you can't keep the next generation coming and honor those who forged the way, then none of this is going to work. When you look at retiree health care, as I said, when I came through college in 1998 and I started teaching, people were filling my class that were early education. Now it's PT and nursing. There's a void because there's not an incentive. The state making it a priority, healthcare and education are top 2 budgets of this $81 billion budget. It's not a political talking point. It is, as I said from my first comment, the baseline of our state and our economy. So give a retirement with healthcare that can be affordable and give people that are working in the field more than $1,000 a year for dental and just tell them to make sure you brush your teeth twice a day because you don't have the money to pay for it. Help with maternity leave and build families. If you invest in the workers, it will show you in the private sector, they will be loyal to you in their profession. You are the talent. And if we don't invest in the talent, then we're not going to have people prepared for under 2 years and 4 years and beyond. This is where it all starts. It's you. And for that, a governor has to lock in that K through 12 budget and don't dip in it for other reasons or paybacks when you need to borrow money. Not fair for you.
Secretary Benson.
Okay. So Michigan has defunded our schools at a higher rate than any other state for the last 3 decades. Yes, in part because Proposal A, but also because of decisions that Republicans made when they were running government. Democrats in charge have started to restock some of that money, but none of that is going to be enough until we do away with the one-size-fits-all funding model that is at the root of the reason why you are not getting the support and the funds that you need. Because you know, what is needed in a school in Alpena is different than what is needed in a school in Muskegon. That's different than what's needed in Detroit, and it's different than what's needed in the UP, period. So we have to restore an equitable education funding model that ensures we're meeting the unique needs of every school and every student. And the other thing I want to add is that I used to run an educational institution, a public law school at Wayne State University here in Detroit. What I also saw running that institution, where I was able to increase our excellence, freeze tuition, and increase scholarship opportunities, was how important it is to keep the lines of funding for K through 12 separate from higher ed. Both are important to fund. Both are critical to enabling our education community, all of you, to prepare our young people for the jobs of tomorrow. But we have to change the structure of how we're funding education in the state if we're going to get to that goal we all have, which is for our schools to be the best in the nation.
The next question is from Susan Bond, a parapro in Ann Arbor. This was heavily debated in the past year in the legislature. So the question is, will you continue to provide free breakfast and lunch for Michigan students? Mayor Duggan.
Yes.
Sheriff Swanson.
100%.
Secretary Benson.
Yes, and I also work to invest in wraparound services for you and for our students, because we know young people can't learn on empty bellies. And I'm grateful for the work that's frankly not just been done in Michigan, but around the nation, in particular with the support of federal funding for the food for our kids. We also need expanded support for wraparound services for you, for our kids. And we also need a governor who, if the President of the United States is going to cut that funding, knows how to stand up to him and ensure that we get that funding. And I'm the only one on this stage, you know, as Secretary of State, who has throughout my time in office been unafraid to stand up to anyone who would get in the way of what we need here in Michigan to protect our schools and our education and election system. I've done that as Secretary of State, and I'll do that as governor.
Attorney General.
I would not give free lunches to rich people. I would not give it to any of the children of any of us on this stage who have the means to pay for it, because that means less money for children who need it. And if you want to bash the state of education today, think about this. You've had a Democrat governor for the past 7 years. You had a Democrat House and Senate for a number of years. And what did that do for you? What did that do for you? And Mike's pitching, after 40 years of being a Democrat, supporting Jennifer Granholm when she did divert funds outside the school aid fund because he was getting money, increased dish funds for the DMC. Think about this. I'm not here pitching you a bunch of BS. I'm here telling you as it is, that we can all do better. Your pay will go up. Your reputations will go up. Your feeling about yourself, which is important, I know as a public servant, will go up if we start to deliver results. And we don't deliver results by giving it to affluent parents like my wife or I or any of the people here. We focus the money on where it's needed. And we talk truth to power. That is, talk about real facts. So if you want to talk about the state of education and you want to use Donald Trump as kind of this straw man to distract your attention away from, you've had a governor of their party, all three of them, and what has happened? You're here, you're complaining about what's happened over the past 7 years. That's under a Democratic administration. Think about that. It's about time that folks tell you the truth instead of try and curry your favor for short-term gain. I'm about the long-term gain. As a businessman, I've had to do that. As a 13-year prosecutor, I did that. As AG, I did that. Thank you. Sorry I went long. I got a little fired up. Sorry.
We're going to turn to mental health. The next question is from Kara Danucchio, a social worker from Forest Hills. As a general ed social worker in West Michigan, I work with many students struggling with anxiety and depression symptoms. I'm interested in hearing your plans for funding and plans for mental health services in schools. Sheriff, this question starts with you.
I'm not interested in asking mom and dad how much they make to qualify their kid for a bowl of Fruit Loops. Mental health involves a lot of variables. And it strikes every school, not just the affluent, not just the rich schools. So if you want to provide resources, it's not a litmus test of who deserves it and who doesn't. These are services that are provided for people who are struggling, and many people have no idea what's behind the mask. They send their kids to school, and they hope that 6, 7, 8 hours is more stable than their home. And the people in this room are pastors and preachers and rabbis and counselors and psychologists. You become the surrogate parents. So when you talk about giving people the opportunity to heal the 3.5 pounds that's in between their ears when they go home and their families are broken, you are the front line to help fix that. And a governor who's there that puts mental health at a high priority to help you do your job and to provide you the tools when you're tapped out. It used to be a stigma, but it's not anymore, because I see this in the jail. I told you my perspective is K through jail. 9 out of 10 people are addicted or co-addicted. Those people are parents. 6 out of 10 have an undiagnosed mental illness, but yet they try to trudge through the day, like many in this room and many of you are watching right now who know people like that. And half of them can't read a menu. And so as governor, we're going to redo the playbook. And we're going to focus on things based on what the need is, not where the money is, to give an equitable share, a weighted funding of who needs the resources. So everybody in the state of Michigan, K through 12, in addition to our 2-year and 4-year and beyond program, has the ability to thrive in education. And a governor, regardless of party, is there for the people, the 10 million. That's what's going to get us to where we need to go. Not gauging who makes more money or who needs it more than others. Thank you.
Secretary Benson.
Okay, so the first part of my education plan to bring us into the 21st century is restoring the funding model and doing away with the one-size-fits-all funding models I talked about. The second is investing in you, raising your salaries and ensuring that you not only have fair compensation, but also the support that you need from professional development and other types of things so that you're able to show up every day and just do the job you signed up to do, which is preparing our young people for the jobs of tomorrow. The third part of my education plan is investing in wraparound services so that from mental health support to counseling, not just for our students, but for you, for our paraprofessionals, for the support staff, for educators all across our state, that we and that you have the support you need to do the jobs that you each signed up to do. And I'm a data person, again, teacher. And looking at the numbers, it's very clear that we are not where we need to be at all in Michigan, because the recommended ratio for student to counselors is 1 to 250. Michigan's at 1 to 600. That's like more than twice. And the recommended ratio for students to school psychologists, 500. What are we? 1,500, 1 to 1,500. 3 times the recommended number. So that speaks for itself. You do not have the wraparound support you need right now to get the job done. And I see it every day when I visit schools all across this state, and I see how hard you're working, and I'm frankly brought back to when I said I went into school with my parents when I was young, 6 years old, and I remember sitting in the back of the classroom and seeing how, like a musician, they would go from one student who was crying and needed support to another student who needed help with math and was getting frustrated, to another student who started panicking because they were having a panic attack and didn't know how to handle it. My parents had to do everything for everyone because they didn't have the additional support they needed to teach the kids that they signed up to teach. And it broke my heart to see that. And I share that with you to say that this is all not just plans and talking points. This is my life. This is why I got in this work, to do this job in this moment, which means getting you those support and resources you need so that we all can prepare our young people for the jobs of tomorrow.
Attorney General.
Thank you. Again, not telling you the truth. Okay, we talk about weighted funding to help those who need it the most, but then we're gonna pay for lunches of kids with affluent parents. What? It's about time we start addressing the real facts here. Okay, mental health is a very important issue. We've all had it in our own families. I, like many of you, know people who've tried to commit suicide, have substance abuse issues, have struggled. And I'm not going to make each and every teacher be a psychologist outside of your job. What I will do is help provide wraparound services and provide that support so that you can focus on teaching. I do know this because there's been studies in Mississippi. When you teach kids how to read, and they're not in 8th grade and they're struggling to read, and they start getting depressed and they start acting out, and they start becoming truant, when you teach kids to read, they move along the right track and their mental health is better. But we've been failing at that here in Michigan. So again, I am focused by many of you. My life, my perspective is shaped by my family. My parent wasn't a teacher, was a carpenter and a maid. My granddaughters are taught by public school teachers, excellent ones in Mississippi. And I've seen the outcomes for them. They are stronger. My autistic special ed granddaughter in 4th grade is now fully mainstream because of the structure she got from her teachers in Mississippi. And they first and foremost focus on teaching her to read. And so that's what I'm going to put on you, is let you do what you do best and then provide the wraparound. Thank you.
Mayor.
So I have a niece who came out of college and got her first job teaching 11th grade at Denby High School in the city of Detroit. The most idealistic, dedicated person you could have, and she picked the city of Detroit to make a difference. And I would listen to her stories week after week. She thought she was going to teach 11th grade English. She was there at 7 in the morning. She was there at 5 at night, dealing with their personal issues, the trauma in their lives. She got so deeply involved in their issues. And you see the human toll it takes. You're in these rooms with these children. Day after day, you're involved in their lives. And the Secretary of State's right. We've got to start with fewest counselors than any state in the country. Who do you turn to, right? We don't have the mental health services. And then if you look at the mental health system, you're probably not following this, but the state of Michigan was in the process of going out for a bid to overhaul it. The court just stopped it. It got stopped in court, and the whole thing is in a state of flux. And I say, what about any of this is Republican or Democrat? But I will come back to this. If you go put the $1.3 billion back in the schools that should be there, it's $1,000 a student. You've got the ability in your districts to do the kind of things that you need. And certainly hiring counseling is there. And then I will talk about mental health longer than anybody wants to hear. I ran Receiving Hospital and Sinai Grace Hospital and Children's Hospital, where we had those psych centers and we dealt with the effect of that trauma firsthand. But we got to give you the resources, and we've got to link you direct to the mental health system. And I'm going to work really hard to get that done.
This next question is from Timothy Resnick, a teacher from Frankfurt, Alberta. He says, there are students throughout the state that are terrified that ICE agents may show up at schools. What are you willing to do to protect students and convince them that the priority at public schools is to provide them with a safe and stable learning environment? Secretary Benson, we'll start with you.
You know, as we see what's unfolding in states like Minnesota and others around our country, and as we see what has been unfolding with attacks on state officials and our citizens, where money has been taken from the federal level, healthcare, and premiums are skyrocketing to pay for an invasion in our communities that is threatening the safety and traumatizing our young people. and every resident feels less safe as a result of that diversion of funding from healthcare into ICE. As Secretary of State, I have been unafraid to stand up to any bully who would try to rip away the rights and the freedoms and the safeties of every citizen in this state. And as I look at what's happening around this country in this moment, it is more clear to me than ever that what we need in the next governor of Michigan is someone who can drive down the cost of living and make government work better to do that, and I've done that in my office, who can increase access to well-paying jobs, and who will also stand unafraid and be unequivocal in protecting the residents of the state, even if it means standing up to the President of the United States. As governor, I will use every tool in my toolbox, just as I've done so and prevailed as Secretary of State, if anyone at the federal level were to try to come for our families, for our kids, for any of you, or any of us. That is not a partisan issue. That is a humanity issue. And the next governor of Michigan must have and demonstrate that they will live the moral courage that I have as Secretary of State to protect the young people, the educators, every resident of every community in this state, no matter what type of tactic the bully in the White House tries to bring to our communities.
Attorney General.
Again, we're talking about the straw man of Donald Trump. What does Donald Trump have to do with your salaries? What does Donald Trump have to do with student performance in your classrooms? Not much. Not much at all. The governor matters a whole lot more. So if you have a beef, your real beef is with the current governor. Your real beef is with the current governor who's supposed to lead the legislature and set priorities. I'm not going to get in some contest of who's braver, who's whatever. I just know this, that if you want to vilify ICE about classrooms, they're not here in Michigan schools. Remember we saw last week the Washtenaw County Sheriff? The Washtenaw County Sheriff wanted to jump out and say there was arrests at ICE at the schools. Here's the reality. If you want public safety, and you go vilify ICE, how does that forward public safety? I'm running for governor not to point fingers at Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I'm running for governor and improve our education system. And I'm going to be here afterwards, and if you have ideas and want to tell me how I'm wrong, I'd love to hear them. Or go to my website. Or send me an email. It's really easy, mc@mikecoxlaw.com. I'm not eternally running for office. I actually started a business, employed people. But here's the reality. I'm here to focus on making education better here without pointing to Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whoever, or even Mike Duggan. He was my boss, so I had to point that out. But here's the reality. Here is the reality. If you want real talk, take it to a guy who comes here to show up when no other Republican will. And that's because I want to talk to you. And I want to talk to the families you serve and the school districts that you serve. And so we can all join together to make education better in Michigan. Thank you.
Mayor.
The pain in a community when ICE is in your community is very real. And I've dealt with it for 12 years as mayor of Detroit. I don't have to tell you promise what I will do and I won't do, and it's easy to come in and tell you what you want to hear. Look at what I have done. We have had the same policy in the city of Detroit for 12 years. The federal government has gone to local police departments and asked them to enter into so-called 287G agreements, where the police department becomes an arm of ICE and enforces it. The city of Detroit has never signed that agreement because in the city, our police department, by policy, does not enforce federal law. All Detroiters know if you encounter a police officer on the street, they will not ask you your immigration status. If the police start to do that, now you can't get witnesses to come forward to say what happened. People who are not here, are not documented, won't be able to report crimes. And there is a high degree of trust between the Detroit Police Department and our immigrant community because of that. On the other hand, we need to be honest about what federal law is. And it's easy to boast, I will ignore federal law and stand up. We've seen how that's happened. Here's the second piece Detroit does. We are not a sanctuary city. And what that means is this. If you are arrested for armed robbery, and we take you to the Detroit lockup, and we take your fingerprint, and ICE calls and says that's an undocumented immigrant we're looking to pick up, we honor that detainer and turn that individual over. The alternative is that we release them, ICE goes into the neighborhood, creates more distress. For 12 years, we have had a policy under Obama, the first Trump, Biden, and the second Trump that says Detroit police will not enforce immigration law, but we will comply with the detainer. We've arrested somebody for a felony, and I think Gretchen Whitmer has set a good tone, but at least in the city of Detroit, and we're vigilant every day, we've done everything we can to protect our residents from ICE.
Sheriff.
Schools are off limits. Churches, synagogues, mosques, and hospitals. There's a humanity part. Of the 4 candidates, 3 of them are attorneys. I'm a frontline officer. I've been on the job for 33 years. I give you a perspective from the front line. When George Floyd was murdered by somebody who looked like me, and Flint was ready to riot, and we were outnumbered 50-1. I couldn't restore him. I couldn't bring him back from the dead. I couldn't fix race relations, but we decided to walk. We decided to think together and walk that way instead of burning the city down. Post-water crisis, crime. Law enforcement is the crossroads of people's public trust and faith in the system. There's a reason why you love your SROs. There's a reason why when you are in crisis, you call 3 numbers, and we're coming. We don't ask questions, but ICE is doing it wrong. I've worked with FBI, Secret Service, ATF, DEA for 33 years. We worked with the most dangerous of cases. We don't have people protesting us. We don't have people scared. We do it professional. I have, at the first killing with Renee Good, came out bold in my own profession. And I said, what happened on that day is not who we are. What happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2020 is not who we are. And so when you have people that are trying to educate and teach kids, and the fear and threat that you and I see every single day, you want somebody who's going to stand in the gap, like the secretary said? You need people that are leaders that have already done that. And that's why it's important to have that strength. When the second murder happened, and you guy who's not even armed, and I said, the first one, if we don't change the way we do directions, this is going to happen again, and it did. And you see what's happened? Course correct. I'm telling you right now, there's a better way to do it, and they're not doing it. And when I stood there on day 4 at the DNC in full uniform, and I looked direct to camera, and I said, I stand with the bullies. That's what you get with a governor who comes from a sheriff. Thank you.
We're going to go now into our final question, and we're going to keep this tight. We're hearing from Eric Hensey, a teacher in Wayne and Westland. We're going to start with, what do you do to ensure that Michigan will once again become a top 10 state in public education? Attorney General.
Number 1, I will opt into President Trump's federal tax credit, which will free up money to come to our state. And I hope the others will join me here, and I hope they address that. Number 2, I will restore accountability. I know I have a friend who teaches in Wayne Westland School, has been there 17 years, and she and her superintendent and the person in her building now tells her that if a child does not turn in homework when she tells the child to, it used to be the child will get a 0. Now they get a 50. And so we all know what that means, social promotion by a different name. And so she's now in the business of managing behavior and not teaching and doing the thing that she was taught to do and she will always strive to do. Number 3, I will follow the Mississippi model, which is phonics, science of reading, 3rd grade reading retention, which studies have shown actually helps children move ahead by the time they get to 6th grade. It will cost more money, but it's the right thing to do by the children. And when we start doing those things, we will start restoring our public education system. And I want the Michigan Education Association to be part of that with me when I'm governor. At the end of the day, I'm here because I always have an open door. I was a Marine, 13 years as a homicide prosecutor. I dealt with children, witnesses who could not read in the 8th grade. I literally had a case on court TV, and one of the 14-year-olds had to admit he couldn't read, and he kept getting promoted. Working with you, I will provide you the resources. Working with you, we will stop that sort of thing from happening. We will restore our education system, and along with it, your reputation and your pay and your future, and we'll make Michigan great again in education. Thank you.
Mayor Duggan.
Going, as I ran for mayor, to the 250 house parties. I'm in every community place I go. I'm talking to educators, and I'm taking this seriously. And you're right, it isn't enough to put that $1.3 billion back. You know what we need? We need a curriculum in these schools and measurements that are written by educators. You know who's writing them now? The state legislature. In the last 10 years, you've had schools were graded in the state, A, B, C, D, F. Then 2 years later, they canceled it, and they rated you red, green, yellow. Then 2 years later, they canceled that and did top to bottom. Remember, embarrass the bottom schools? Then they went back and restored A, B, C, D, F. And then 2 years later, they rescinded A, B, C, D, F. They change your curriculum. They change your textbook. But it is not the State Board of Ed. This is the legislature divided, an even 50-50 split. And did you see what they did last May? The House Republicans voted on a straight party line vote to cancel Algebra 2 as a required course. Now, they were doing it to create flexibility in the high school curriculum for CTE. But do you want the legislators deciding whether Algebra 2 or art should be in the school? And so what I'm saying is this, and please come out to my forums and my plan. We're going to have educator-driven measurements, educator-driven curriculums, because here's what I know. This two-party system, the only time in our history the parties have reinvented themselves is after a big loss. The Republicans reinvented themselves after Nixon. The Democrats reinvented themselves after Reagan. But in the state of Michigan, we are purple. We are so close that we'll never have a bad loss. It's going to go back a little bit each way, and we'll be stuck in Groundhog Day forever unless we do something different and have leadership that says, let's bring the Republicans and Democrats of goodwill together. Let's have the educators involved in writing our plan, and let's change the education system in a way that everybody can get behind. That's the only way to make lasting change.
Sheriff.
I'm not interested in a Mississippi model. I'm interested in a Michigan model. And that being said, I became a licensed paramedic when I was 20 years old. I'm still a licensed medic. When I have a patient who's showing symptoms, I can treat them, but you know what makes more sense? Fix the problem. And so this is an algorithm solution. So when we talk about free lunches and breakfast to make sure that they're not struggling and pre-K for everybody, that's the baseline to get them set up for an algorithm of success. So when it comes to that pattern, not everybody's built for college. Bringing those trades into the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th, career awareness, making sure there's no ISD deserts throughout the state, giving people didactic reasons to pick a path, and then a path where they can be carried and shown that this is the way you can fend and live and thrive in your own life. That literacy part, 1 to 3, they learn how to read, 3 to beyond, they're reading to learn. So helping you get the tools to not only increase literacy, but also a career path to success. I love the dual enrollment. It makes sense. If we took those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and put them into an apprentice program in 9th and 10th and co-opt them in 11th and 12th, we're producing a workforce to attract new industry, new economy. There's no middle ground for vouchers. It takes away from K through 12 budgets. If you want to send your kids someplace else, then do that, but don't take it away from K through 12. That is the baseline. I keep saying it. It's the foundation of our entire state. The workforce, the future, stable families, stable people, preparing for the greater education. So to the answer, we have to have more than a 2 or 4 year or partisan plan. I'm not interested in making a decision as a governor for the next election. I'm interested in making decisions for education that have generational impact to be number 1 in the country, and it can be done with you. Thank you.
Secretary.
Well, my education plan has 4 points. Number 1, doing away with the one-size-fits-all funding model and ensuring equitable funding that meets every unique student's needs. Number 2, investing in an educator-driven curriculum model that you are empowered to implement in your schools. Number 3, ensuring that you have the compensation and wraparound services you need and professional support to do your job. And number 4, ensuring we're investing in post-secondary support, whether it be in apprenticeships and skilled trades, access to college, or even a year of service. But how do you know I can actually take a system and make it one of the best in the country? Well, as Secretary of State, I've done that, right? I not only oversee our state's elections at the statewide level, during an incredibly highly scrutinized period for elections, we were able to take our election system from being ranked 31st in the country to number 2 with the highest back-to-back turnout elections in our state's history. But as Secretary of State, I also run the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, which makes me very popular. But as the head of this poster child for bureaucracy, I was able to come into office, work with a Republican-led legislature across partisan lines, because frankly, we're all in this together, and ensure with a data-driven best practice model, talking with the staff and uplifting their vision, we transformed that office to ensure in every single one of our counties, in every single one of our 131 offices, we've eliminated wait times, we've put self-service stations in grocery stores, we've transformed the model for delivering services when people said we couldn't do it, and we did it with bipartisan support. I'm going to do the same thing for our schools and education, and you know I'm committed to it because you know my heart. I'm the daughter of public school teachers. I'm a former teacher myself, and I'm the mom of a kid who knows, and I know, that every kid in this state's childhood will be determined by what we do together in the next decade. I want Michigan to be the best place for every kid in this state to stay and work and call home, and only working with you all can we get there. So I hope to have your support as I seek to be the next governor of Michigan. Thank you.
And that was Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson, former Attorney General Mike Cox, and former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Now, after holding your applause, thank you for the time. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're heading out this way.
I'm gonna grab my water.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Is it what you wanted? Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
All right, folks, stay to your seats for just a second. Don't forget we got drawings to do. So if you want to win, better stay. Chris. Okay. I'm going to hand this over to Chris to do a couple of quick things. If anybody still has a pack envelope, hold it up real high, and we'll make sure somebody comes around to get it. We got a couple over here. We'll get you guys in the drawing here in just a second.